got your attention now, don't I?
This is the Black Rifle Coffee Podcast.
So, first time in Utah, or have you been here before?
I've never been to Utah. I was flying in. I saw the lake. That's why they call it Salt Lake City, right? Yeah. So I actually, I like to, when I come to a new town, if I have the time, I like to stay for a couple days. So I'm actually going to stay 2 or 3 days.
Are you really?
Yeah, I'm going to stay till Thursday and just check out the town. You know what I travel a lot, and if I just have an extra day or two, because I think people forget that the United States is like this awesome place, that there's so much stuff to do. And it's like, well, no, actually the only thing to do is go to Las Vegas, go to New York, go to LA, and it's like, or Miami.
Right.
And it's like, those places are actually kind of dying, really. At least right now. And so it's like, you know, I walked downtown last night and I was like, yo, here's like a cool craft bar. Right. Like, oh, here's another cool craft bar. Like, oh, here's an Irish pub. Like, it's kind of a dive, but like, that's where I went. And I had a beer and I talked to the bartender and she was cool. And I was like, yeah, I'm here to do podcasts, whatever. And, you know, so it's fun to do that, you know?
Yeah. I would agree. I think I was just in New York last week and it was interesting because people, like they have this perception of New York where, you know, it's like the Gestapo is coming around with their, telling you to put your mask on, which wasn't the case, by the way. Like most places I went, I was not wearing a mask. I'd never wore a mask inside, like walking into restaurants and shit. And most people didn't even say anything. But you hear this perception is that these people are all like crazy. And it's like, no, man. Actually, there's a huge percentage of people out there that really don't give a fuck. Like they don't care. And I did notice though that it didn't seem like as lively as that would be like a few years ago when I was there. And maybe, I don't know. I mean, I was kind of in a bubble, but it seems like people kind of been beaten down by this thing.
Yeah. So I was actually, I was supposed to play a show one night. I was like headlining at 1:30.
Really?
And, I mean, yeah. So the clubs are always packed, right?
Right.
And I get there and there's like 10 people. And like, I literally brought my buddy who's like a DJ and I was like, yo, I ain't doing this. Like you just go up there for like 20 minutes and they'll shut this thing down.
Right.
And he did it. And I was like, because I'm like, so now you have guys that are in charge of clubs that are shutting down their smaller clubs and then using the promoters that are promoting for those clubs to send them to the bigger clubs.
Okay.
Because what happened, there's a couple things that happened. Obviously, just this whole thing has made everything awful and no one wants to be there.
Right.
It's not as safe as it was. It's not really safe at all. I actually saw a shooting while I was there. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, like I heard like pop, pop, pop. And the gun they used didn't sound like loud enough to be a gun. And I just kind of like, I'm looking around and everyone's running. I'm like, oh, maybe I should run. Like, but I'm like, well, the bullets are already fired and the cops already pulled up. I'm like, so I went over and I was like, oh, yep, that's blood on the ground. But yeah, it's not as safe as it was. And the third thing is, one, they weren't letting international tourists in at all.
Right.
I don't know if you remember that. Like,
yeah, you're right. Yeah,
that was like the craziest thing. I didn't even realize that, which is, you know, New York is huge for international tourists.
Yeah.
Now you still have to show a negative test to come here.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, first of all, why? Because the cases are huge. So who even cares anymore?
Right.
It just doesn't make sense to me.
No, it doesn't make sense to me either. It really hasn't made sense to me for a long time. But then there's some things like you just kind of say, fuck it. It doesn't matter to me anymore. It's like, okay, I got to show a negative test to get into this bar. And then as soon as I walk in, I can pull my mask down and have a drink and I can live like a normal human. It doesn't make sense to me, but it doesn't make sense to me even when you walk around an airport and you have to have your mask on, which I haven't had on for like 6 months, but that's irrelevant. But supposedly, right, everybody's walking around. And then right outside of the main thoroughfare in the restaurant, everybody else in the restaurant doesn't have one. It's literally like 3 feet away. And it's like, this is air and it's movement. There's literally zero substantive scientific fact backing up any of this shit. And why why we haven't just been like, this is crazy. Like, this is fucking complete insanity, right? Like, you want to look around and go, like, this is crazy, right, everybody? Like, because everybody, but no, there's a ton of people who are like, no, this piece of fucking t-shirt that I have on my face is going to protect me against that virus. And we all have to pretend. It's like trying to believe in Santa Claus as a 40-year-old sometimes, where you're like, hey man, like my kids are like 8 and 4. I still got to play along with it because it's fun. It's fun for the kids. To still like think that Santa Claus can travel internationally and go through every one of the fucking chimneys and deliver presents and shit.
He better get a test before he gets here. So
that's true. Santa better be fucking be negative and wearing a mask before he fucking delivers presents. That's a good point.
And he can't do it in New York City unless he's fully vaccinated.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, they're going to make it 3 shots soon. So, he better get on that.
Fucking put them all in. That's what I'd say. Like, make a suppository. Like, put it in your ears. Like, just fuck it. Who cares?
Food. They were talking about. They're like, yeah, we could maybe put this in people's food. It's not a bad idea. I was like, good call. We should just continuously take it. You should put it in your coffee.
It's like a vaccination coffee. Oh yeah. We better get off this. So, how does one get into your line of work? Like, how did you even get into this, man? Like, so unpack your entire history for us first. Like, let's just unpack your history.
Yeah. So I'm Zach, but I'm also Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah.
And the Bay is spelled BAE.
Which I thought is fucking super fun.
Yeah. So I was stationed in Guantanamo Bay. I joined the Navy specifically because I wanted college money, not because I wanted to serve my country.
Right.
Most people won't admit to that, but I'm like fully admitting.
And there's a huge percentage of people that actually did that. So yeah.
And so when I joined the Navy because I was like, well, there's no way I'm going to be involved in the war in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
I joined up. As you might know in the Navy, we have rates. So my rate was operations specialist. That's like a radar navigator.
Right.
So go through boot camp, go through A school, graduate. I was the first person in my class to graduate, but I wasn't the top because it was self-paced. So, but I was motivated, right? I was like, I was a fuck up in high school. If you're an academic, I had a 1.86 GPA, which I think it's a D+. It's
solid. It's at least a D+.
And I mean,
it's solid.
Not to brag.
Yeah.
So I was like super motivated when I joined the Navy. I was like, I'm going to turn my life around. This is going to be awesome. And I actually did. Like, I did really well in my operations specialist A school. Got out, and I waited on hold for like a month. And I was like, and all you do on hold in the Navy is clean barracks.
Right.
And I was like, this fucking sucks. And then it turned into 4 months. But luckily, I had been called to the schoolhouse to do work for this chief for 1 week. And then like I realized they would let you out in the morning from your 8 a.m. muster. And they were like, no one cared what you did after that. Like,
really?
Until the next 8 a.m. muster the next day.
Are you kidding me?
Just because you were on school duty.
Right.
Like you had to muster like at like 6 o'clock every day, 6 p.m. every day. But if you were on the school duty, you didn't have to muster. So I would so after a week of it, they let me go. And I just never told the people that I was not doing that duty. That I was so I would just go to the MWR and I would just like pass out until probably about 10 a.m. Then I'd hit the gym for about an hour and a half.
Solid.
Run, go to go get some chow, come back to the MWR, like play some video games, and then go to the gym again. And then I don't even really know what I did. I had to do something until at least 4 p.m. every day. Did that for 4 months. Finally, I got orders and I was like reading them, and I'd never read orders before. And I'm like, what the fuck does this mean? Guantanamo Bay. What ship is stationed in Guantanamo Bay?
Right.
And it was like, and I like went to the schoolhouse. I asked my chief. He's like, "You go to Guantanamo Bay?" I was like, "Why am I going to Guantanamo Bay, chief?" He's like, "You're gonna be a prison guard." It's like, "What do you say?" Right? Say, "Hi, chief." Get the fuck out of the office, right?
Right.
So I'm like, I go through the training, whatever. Get to Guantanamo Bay. I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Like, this is fucked. Like, I don't want to be here. I didn't want to have anything to do with this fucking war on terror.
Right.
Like, I'm pissed off. And, I'm just guarding fucking detainees every day. Detainees.
Yeah.
Did that and went to, first I was at Camp 4, minimum security. Then I went to Camp 6, medium security, joined the forced cell extraction team. I started to get kind of motivated.
Right.
I wanted to like hurt people. Right. I shouldn't say that, but like I wanted to like hurt these guys. Like I never did anything. So our motto was fair, firm, impartial, right? You couldn't be mad at these guys for what they did. Like you couldn't treat them any differently. And I took that very seriously.
Right.
But I was the number one man on the FCE team. So I carried the shield. So when they popped the door open, I go in. And, it was cool. And it was cool for a while. And then they started kind of like the Obama administration had just got in. They said they were going to release them.
Yeah. They said they were going to shut it down.
Yeah. And that was fucking awful for us.
Really?
That's when the shit started to fly. When the closer we got to that date, the more the literal shit started to fly.
Right. Like they started realizing that this is coming, or they thought it was coming, and then they're compliant, basically. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Like if he would have never said anything, that would have been better for us because they wouldn't have been as angry as they were. And then that turned to the officers. I know you love officers.
I do. I'm
a big fan of officers too. That turned to the officers like, oh, we got to have 2 guards. Where there was normally like 1 guard, we have to have 2 guards there.
Right.
So all we're doing for 12 hours a day is just standing or walking. And then we get home and just got to the point to where they went from us roving to us like closing down the pods or closing them to where the detainees could just do whatever they want all day.
Really?
Yeah. So we were just standing there, and it got to the point to where I was just like, I was so not motivated that I would you could hold on to like the little pressure release on the door.
Right.
So whenever someone would come over to check on you, they were checking to make sure you're okay. They were checking to make sure you weren't sleeping. And I was. I want them to know. I want them to know right now. Every fucking officer that I hated, I want them to know that I was sleeping all the time on my watch because I don't care. My job was to make sure they didn't kill themselves. And I don't care if they killed themselves. Well, I wouldn't mind.
I think there's something to be said about that. I have so many questions. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to be on the show. I actually haven't spoken to anyone that was a guard there. Like, what can you tell us, or what can you tell me about the entire situation? Like these guys, because you hear like all these different narratives. I know for a fact because I was on the other end, like scooping these guys or putting them in planes for transportation. And most of these guys are bad dudes. And I say, like statistically, you can't be 100% accurate because it's your human error is human error. But most of these guys were really bad guys. What was your experience with these guys from your end? Yeah.
I mean, so that's the thing is we didn't really know. So we know that a couple guys, like, I don't know, maybe, I don't know the number. Maybe it was 10%, maybe it was 25%, like got snapped up for the wrong reasons. Like maybe some dude had a feud with some other guy that went back 10 generations and he's just like fucking him over. And then once you send them to Guantanamo Bay, and you might already know this, you can't just send them back.
You can't. Yeah.
No one's going to be like, oh yeah, I'll take, whatever the fucking guy's name, ISN 00482, whatever.
Right.
Like, sorry, like he's kind of an international terrorist. So we don't really want him back in Libya. Problems. But maybe he's not really a terrorist, but it's like, it's too late. But there were a lot of bad guys down there. Like I met one of the guys, I don't remember his name, but he was like this British guy. He got arrested in England.
Right.
Like, and he spoke like British English, and I don't remember what he did, but he was a bad dude. I remember. So I think the best example would be this forced cell extraction we did. I don't know if it was KSM.
Right.
It was either him or like one of his dudes. So Camp 2-3 is like an open air cell area. So I'm on the FCE team. Combat camera comes up, and they're like, you gotta do the whole spiel, and they film you doing the whole thing.
Right.
So I'm like, I'm the number one man. I carry the shield, and they smack my shield, whatever.
Right.
And then we would start to screw around, and it's like, I'm the number 2 man. Like, I think the number 2 was the team leader. I'm the team leader. I make sure the team blah blah. And then it's like, I'm number 3. Like, and then you get to number 6. So number 1 is always a big dude. Number 6 is always a small woman. Because at the end of, I'll tell you what happens at the end. It's very fun.
Right.
So we go down the block, whatever. He's the only dude on the block because he's a leader.
Right.
And what the leaders will hype everyone else up, and then they'll do something like they'll make it rain. Like, so you have like a 2-tier pod.
Right.
And what they'll do is they'll clog up the toilets. And then the water will fall down from the top, or they'll just smear shit all over the walls or whatever.
Right.
One guy drew an American flag and shit. So I don't know if that was maybe he was just trying to do some art.
Yeah, that would be debatable.
Yeah.
Debatable?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
No, so they would do just anything to fuck with us, one guy he would always tell me stories about like blowing up Marines or something. And,
oh, wow.
That really, somebody's like, well, why don't you just, somebody goes, why don't you just walk away?
Right.
I'm like, I'm the guard.
I'm the guard.
I walk the fucking block. Like,
right.
What am I going to do? Like, just, hey guys, I got to take, you could call for relief if you were getting pissed off.
Right.
But whatever. But so we go on the block, we go in, he's not combative. So I put my shield to the side. The guys go in, tag him, whatever. We got him in cuffs. We bring him out. We carry him like this. We bring him over and they're just checking him for stuff. And I think it was just because he wouldn't eat. So they had to tube feed him.
Right.
They call it force feeding. I call it tube feeding.
Right. I like tube feeding better. It sounds better.
Yeah.
It's more catchy.
And we have this dude and he's like telling us this story, right? He's telling us the story of how America is like this wolf and like in Afghanistan, they're the sheep.
Right.
And I listened to it and I was like, damn, this is like kind of, it was like I don't remember it, but it was like a really compelling story, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm like, if you were someone who lived in a tribe and you didn't have any formal education and this guy came up to you and like tried to convince you to go and shoot at, a convoy or whatever that's going by. Like, this is the kind of guy that could do it, right? And you're like, yeah, this is a bad dude. This is a dangerous guy. So we bring him back to cell. We put him down. So the last thing, the reason number 6 is a small woman is because she has to hold on to him while we take off the cuffs.
Right.
She keeps the arms and legs in. And then I, as the number 1 man, grab onto her because we're in riot gear, right?
Right.
So I grab onto her vest. And I pull her out, and then place her down as the cell door is being closed.
Oh, right. Okay.
And so his cell is like a mesh wire, right? But it's got plexiglass covering it, so he can't throw shit at us. This dude is so good at hiding and throwing shit. Like some guard was in there checking to make sure he didn't have any shit to throw at us as he was out of his cell.
Right.
This dude is so good at hiding it, and nothing against the guard that went in. Like they're just good at this. He was able to hide a cup of shit, like a little cup like that. And he threw it at the top of the wall, hit the top of the wall, and it sprayed down all over us. Like he was so good at it.
So gross, man.
And so we're in full riot gear, whatever. We're fully covered. And you'd think these guys are going to be grossed out. So we get out and obviously we're taking the stuff off as fast as possible.
Right.
And we all look at each other and we're like, yo, because we hadn't got hit with shit before.
Right.
And we're like, yo, that's when you're a real GITMO guard is when you get hit with shit. So we were all like, fuck yeah, we did it. We did it. Yeah, hell yeah. So we were celebrating. I mean, the only equivalent, I'm not calling this an equivalent, but the equivalent I assume would be you got in your first firefight or something.
Yeah, yeah.
That was for us, that was nobody got hurt, whatever.
Yeah.
It was just we got covered in shit.
Right.
So that's, I guess if that gives you an idea of what it was kind of like, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think there's one of the things that you always have this, your mind's eye as to what is going on, right? So I know soldiers, sailors, airmen, right? I know because I was one, and I understand there's a lot of just jackassery that goes on.
Yeah.
Like you're telling the story about 4 months of playing video games and working out and just skating. And it's yeah, man, everybody's had a few weeks or some area of time in their career where they've just skated hard, because they're in purgatory. They've got a several year contract. The mill or whatever doesn't exactly know where you are or whatever it might be. Everybody's had that time. Maybe it's a week, maybe it's 2 weeks, maybe it's a month or whatever. I tore my right medial gastroc early on, and I had 6 months of PT, and because it was couldn't run, couldn't do much of anything, and cruising around in like a boot. And then I'd also had 2 broken arms, so I broke both my arms, and so I've had lots of like time to just like convalesce and fuck off. But like truly, like I would like dip out for like 2 weeks with like 2 casts on, cruising around Seattle, drinking coffee or whatever, and just like reading books and hanging out. But just total skate, like nobody watching me. And it's like the best feeling. It's like the best feeling ever.
Getting away with it.
You're like, there's nothing I can do. Only thing I can do is like sleep till like fucking 10, play some video games or read. Back then there was no video games to be played, but I'd read and fucking drink coffee and just like totally fuck off. It's like the best feeling ever.
Yeah.
Especially as a young guy, because you're like, it almost feels like you're getting paid to skip school. That's almost like...
That is exactly what it feels like.
Right?
Yeah. In the military, it's your parents.
Yeah,
and they're trying to catch you.
They're like, here's $10. And you're going to go like get an allowance to go skip school because now you have money. You can go do things. Not a lot, granted. But it's funny, one, understanding that experience. Then two, the GITMO experience. There's this perception of that is just not reality from a lot of civilians, I think, where they're like, guards are just so fucking squared away. They're like AJ squared away all the time. And then, if you listen to NPR or whatever you listen to, you're going to hear this one side of the story where it's like, there's just nothing but innocent people in GITMO. and they're just all these like upstanding citizens that we accidentally scooped up or whatever, right? That's NPR's take. And then, if the other side or whatever is like, they're all fucking crazy, terrorist assholes, which the truth is somewhere in between. But I think it would be interesting to hear, like, what was it like to be stationed there? Like, was it, because I look at it and I'm like, dude, that kind of sounds cool as far as like where you live and what you're doing. Like, did you have like access to the beach, or is there anything redeemable about it?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the biggest problem for me was like, I think as a kid, like I didn't really have not that a lot of us had good childhoods. I think there's sort of this, I think if you join the military, a lot of us, especially enlisted, just didn't have great childhoods. And I wasn't mentally acclimated for like what I was going to have to put myself through. Like I mentally acclimated myself to get through boot camp and A school. Like I was like, and then I was like, I'm going to go to the fleet and get all my quals. Like I'm going to get the little pin thingy and I'm going to be squared away Joe Navy.
Right.
And then that just like totally threw me into disarray. And I know that the military has the right to do whatever they want with you. Like that's just how it works. Yeah. So, but like if you fuck me over like that, like I'm going to fuck you back. Right. Like, so for me, there was like, there was snorkeling. It's so fucked up. There's snorkeling, right? So I go snorkeling and it's the day before my birthday.
Right.
And I cut my foot in a coral reef. And then I go into work the next day on my birthday, I'm doing my 12-hour shift. And my foot swells up so big it can't fit in my boot. But if it wouldn't have been for that, I wouldn't have got my birthday off. So you gotta take the good with the bad. But now everyone wants to save the coral reefs. I'm like, fucking kill them all, man. You can quote me on that. Kill the coral reefs. No, I'm kidding. But no. So there was some like humanity moments, right?
Right.
Like, these guys like, so I feel bad saying this, but like, I'm just going to say it. Like, these guys like fought against Americans. Maybe some of them killed Americans, but like, this is a war. Like they're on that side, right? Like I understand that this war is different than the wars that we fought in the past because of the way we worded things, but it's the same type of war. You're the enemy to them. They're the enemy to you. So like, like I would talk to these guys and, I didn't make friends with anyone because again, fair, firm, impartial. Some people did. We called them TLs, Tainer lovers. But like if the guys came up to me and they were just asking for, we had to give them water bottles for whatever reason. They couldn't have their own water bottles. I don't know.
Right.
But so here's a water bottle, man. Like, if they're having a down day and they want to just vent, I'm not going to like comfort him. I'm not going to like put my hand through the wire and it's okay. Some people really did that, man. But I'd listen to him and I'd kind of nod my head and, I wouldn't like if the dude was like mad about something and he wanted to talk to the interpreter, like I could really just pretend to call the interpreter and some people did, but like, if he's upset, like I'm going to call the interpreter. I don't fuck with their prayer calls. Like, you know, like I don't, like if it's prayer call, like I'm not moving around. I'm not being a dick. If one of them looks at me because because I mean, you're going to fuck up sometimes. So
sure, of course.
Sometimes I'd be doing something and he'd be like, shh, and I'd be like, oh, my bad. Like, you know, like I'm just don't be a dick. Right.
Yeah.
And treat them like human beings. And then, you know, sometimes we had arrangements too. Like when I was in Camp 4, the minimum security camp, we didn't do any roving.
Right.
So I would just be standing next to the door and I'd be like, yo, 00248 or whatever. I forgot how the ISNs worked. But I was like, yo, if you see the watch commander come around, I'm going to go sleep. Like, I'm going to sleep. Come over here. You tell me. He's like, yeah, go to sleep. MP. They called us MP. He's like, go to sleep, MP. I take care of you. And people are like, well, what if they killed themselves? I'm like, I don't care. They're like, you're going to get sent to Fort Leavenworth. I'm like, I don't care. I was literally at the point to where it was like, I was so depressed that I wouldn't care if I died.
Wow.
Oh yeah. I've never been suicidal.
Right.
But like, I was just so depressed. I was like, because some people can like stand there for 12 hours a day with no stimuli.
Right.
Like that's cool to them. They actually enjoyed it. But I'm a philosopher, right? I think all day. And all I did all day was think about like the moral implications of, you know, detainees versus this or who is this guy? Yeah, he's a bad guy, but this and that. And then they tell me fucked up stories to fuck with me and that would fuck with me. And so sleeping was actually my way of not going fucking batshit crazy.
Right.
Like I would get in like a solid 8 hours. I'd be awake for about 4.
Right.
And then I'd go home and like I'd go to the gym. So when I was leaving GITMO, I got choice orders. Right. They gave us choice orders because everyone that so I forgot about this part. Everyone that went there was E4 and above.
Right.
Because you had to volunteer for that and you had to be already in the fleet. It was a do you know a GSA? It's like, so you have IA, individual augmentees in the Navy, which means you get pulled from your ship, but you're still attached to the ship and you go do an army job, you know? So you might have seen some guys in Iraq or Afghanistan. Yep. That were sailors. Those guys were probably IA unless obviously they were like SF dudes or whatever.
Right.
But then you have GSA, which is where your command is actually the place itself.
Okay.
So you had to volunteer for that. But the caveat was our company 10 Echo, which is my company, 20 of the people, 10 of them were from AO A school and 10 of them were from OS A school. And they just picked us and told us we had to do it. So
it's kind of a random,
right? And everyone's like, as soon as we get to training, like all the E4s and above who came from the fleet are like, they sent you guys here first. Like, wow, your careers are fucked. Little did I know.
Seriously?
Little did I know they were totally correct.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fucked up.
Well, ironically, when I was leaving, I was totally different. I was like, yo, I want to go fucking kill some people. Like, let's fucking do it. So I volunteered for. I put in for orders to Rivron 2. I don't know if you know Rivron.
What's that?
It's like a riverine squadron.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now they're like getting captured by Iranians and they're just doing port security.
Right.
But before apparently they were doing like the same stuff as SWIC, but just not as cool.
Right.
Not as like well-trained, but pretty well-trained. Mm-hmm. So I was like super hype. So I was like, you know, you had the TRKs and you'd run to the gym.
Right.
I'd run to the pool and I had my little fins and I was like, I learned the combat side stroke and all this stuff. And then 2 months before I was going to leave, my orders got dropped. And I'm like, what the fuck? And it's like, oh, you didn't do the physical fitness test. I'm like, why? I can't read orders. I've never been to the fleet. Like, I don't and there was no command leadership. Like, you know, normally you have an LPO, leading petty officer.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like you're E6 and you have a chief. Like in GITMO, there was no LPO. There was no chief. There was technically one. You technically had one. Right. But it was every man for himself. Like, as soon as work's done, like, everyone's going home. Like, don't fucking bother me. Like, I don't want to talk about, no one wanted to talk about work. Everyone just wanted to be gone. Yeah. So they dropped me. And then I ended up on the USS Boone. That ended up not going well either.
How long, how big was that ship?
The Boone?
Yeah.
250. But we were undermanned, I think. Also, hate the captain too. If he ever listens, I hope he knows that I hate him.
So is it what kind of ship was it?
FFG frigate.
Okay.
Yeah, guided missile frigate with no guided missiles.
Oh, badass. Yeah. So what does it do?
Well, it's got a 76 millimeter gun.
Okay.
And it's got chaff.
Cool.
Chaff, yeah. So like if
chaff.
missiles are coming at you
can chaff it.
Chaff it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So did you go out? You got to see? Like I'm not a big Navy lingo guy, but like I'm assuming that's what did you go float?
So right? I would did you go see, I don't even remember. So God. You'll understand it in a second, but like so I was when I got to the ship, I wasn't supposed to be deployable for a year.
Right.
Within 6 months of getting there, they were going to deploy again. I was supposed to be on shore duty. I was promised shore duty. But when they dropped my orders, they said, no, you fucked up. So now you get whatever we tell you.
Cool.
So I get to the ship and I'm just super depressed. And I'm just like, totally like, mind is just mush. And I'm like, and I get to the ship and I'm like, well, at least I'm going to learn how to do this stuff. They sent me to sea school before they sent me to the ship, by the way, which is like where they teach you your job even better.
Right.
Right. So I learned Tattle J 0348. And I was like, the whole time I'm like, why am I here?
What is it? What was it?
I don't know what any of this is. I've never done it.
What was it?
It's the link system. So it's it provides the fleet. It's basically sending information from your ship to the fleet. So they can create a complete picture of all the contacts around the fleet. So if you're in a battle group, like our frigate would be sending it to the like the carrier who's in charge, and then they would send data back to us so that it would have a complete picture of what all the contacts were. Okay. I don't know how it works. I remember I took the class. I don't remember exactly how it works, but like it's called like a NICOS or some shit. But yeah, I got to the ship. You know, we steamed like it's.
What does that mean?
It's like a Cleveland steamer, I guess. No, it's you go. Can I say that?
Yeah, of course. You can say whatever you want.
Awesome. Yeah. So we went out for like a week, and then we came back, and I actually got in trouble. Underage drinking. Oh, I was 20 years old. I just got frocked to E5.
Nice.
And in the Navy, 6 months probationary period. If you get in trouble, boom, you're down to E3.
Right.
So they knocked me down to E3. In their defense, I had been a shithead and they were gunning for me.
Right.
But I was also super depressed and just miserable. So I was on restriction on the ship for like 2 months or something. Half month's pay times 2. And I was like, you know what, man? Fuck this. So I said, I want to go see a psychologist. Mm-hmm. So they had to take me over to, I was at Mayport, Florida. They took me over to the other one. I forget what it's called. It's like near Orange County, Florida.
Right.
And I just talked to the guy. I'm like, dude, if you send me back to that ship, like something bad's going to happen. And he's like, trying to get me to say I'm going to kill myself.
Right.
He like wants me to say, that so he can send me like a crazy ward.
Right.
And I know he wants me to say that.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, I'm just going to do my job poorly.
Right.
Somebody's going to I'm going to be navigating the ship. Somebody's going to fall overboard. We're going to do an overboard drill and I'm just going to fuck it up.
Right.
And like somebody's going to die. And he's like, okay. I'm like, you can't send me back. So like they took me off the ship and I got my shore duty.
Did you really?
Yeah. Well, you're on light limited duty.
Right.
And then I just did that. I only had like a year left. So a year and a half, and I did like a year of light limited duty. And then I got taken off of light limited duty, but then I applied for an early out because they had that program. So I got my honorable discharge, but I did my fucking deployment, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I just, you know, I did the fucking hard shit. I was a good fucking sailor and a good fucking guard when I needed to be.
Right.
And when my job was to make sure guys weren't fucking killing themselves, I was like, this is bullshit and I don't care.
Right.
So, I mean, I did the job that most people would just lie and say they were awesome the whole time. But like, I like to be honest about everything. Like, it's like, because a lot of people didn't have great careers and they probably lie about those careers. And, you know, it's like, you know, for me, I go to mental health counseling and it's like, it's not a big deal.
Right.
Like, you know, we were all shitheads. We all got fucking knocked down. Like, you know, how many people haven't fucking been to Captain's Mast or whatever, what do you guys call it?
Article 15 or
Article 15.
Board.
Yeah. I bought a couple of those shirts back in the day.
Yeah, they're good shirts. Yeah, they're good shirts. Yeah, I think most of us, like, you know, most of the time, you know, I talk to a lot of guys that were like, you know, SEALs or whatever, right? Because I mean, that I come from, there's a whole section of the military that's outside of special operations that, you know, I we talk to every day. I mean, outside of these walls, if we were to go outside of the podcast and like walk around, there's guys that have got all different types of military occupational skills in the Marine Corps, the Navy, the Army, and they're across the board. Like one of the things I thought was really interesting, one was your GITMO experience. Then two, you transition into something that is like, I don't think there's a lot of people that are doing it to any success. So how did you make your transition out and then decide like, okay, this is what I'm going to do now. Like this is the next piece, because it doesn't seem like a normal route. Like it doesn't seem like a professional route for anybody.
Yeah. Everyone wanted me to be a cop.
Right.
Even like, so I got out, I went to New York. My uncle, awesome guy. He let me sleep on his couch for like 6 months. Got my own place, like went to Pace University. And I was kind of like not a veteran. Like I wasn't like a guy who was like wanted the world to know in any way, shape, or form that I was a veteran. I was like, I'm going to just be a college student, like whatever. Right. And then I met this guy. He was a former scout sniper. He was actually recruiting for a fraternity. Right. The fraternity was like full of veterans. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you know what? Okay, I'm down with this. Right. It was really cool. Like, they had a whole process and everything, but we were doing fun stuff. He's like, you got to carry these eggs around for a whole day. Right. And at the end of the day, like you got to run across these bridges and and we're putting the eggs in the ground. You got to army crawl, to the eggs, and there's a machine gun. Like, some guys just going, like, this is a good time. And I was like, this is awesome. So a couple of the guys in my fraternity, we had a good mix of just guys that hadn't been in the military and guys who had. And the guys that hadn't been in the military are, a little bit more artistic, creative. Not the guys that have been in the military can't be artistic and creative. I think we're just afraid to be. And I think a lot of people tell us we can't be. Mm-hmm. So they were DJs. And I was like, dude, that's so cool. And I fell in love with electronic music. Right. I was like super depressed after I got out. Like all I had was anger and laughter, right? Those are the only two emotions that I have, which aren't really emotions. Right. Laughter is usually just masking shit, right? Mm-hmm. So I went to this music festival, and I'd never really listened to electronic music. Like they don't really have it in Missouri, but I had been listening to it when I was in the military. I just didn't know what to call it. Right. So you go to this music festival, and one of my buddies actually gives me Molly, right? MDMA. Yeah. And I took it, and I'm in this trance tent. It's like trance music, which is like, it's I don't want to say it's repetitive, but it's like you can mix in multiple songs and you'll never know. If you're not someone who really knows trance, you won't even know you're listening to a different song. Okay. So for like an hour, I feel amazing. I'm like, this is awesome. Like I'm happy. And everyone's like, dude, we got to go to main stage. It's like, these DJ names are, it's like Finger Smash or like, right. Like Tomahawk, Carbon, whatever. And I'm just like rolling face, and I'm like, dude, absolutely not. Like I'm chilling, like leave me alone. And again, the great dudes that were my fraternity. This guy wasn't in the military. Like my brother Ty, like he sees me having a good time, and he's like, he loves that. So he just stays with me in this trance tent. And I'm just doing this for like 4 hours. And like, I turn around after like 4 hours, and he's just like, you ready to go? I'm like, yeah, because everything is over. Right. And it's like, and I was like, dude, electronic music was the first thing that I felt after getting out. And two, when we talk about drugs a lot, I think Molly really helped me realize that MDMA helped me realize that was like something that was possible again, right? Taking it again didn't really help that much, but like just that one experience of realizing this emotion is something you have access to, something you're doing is blocking you from getting there. And that actually that's when I started going to therapy. Really great program. I don't know if you ever heard of Headstrong through. Oh, yeah. Yeah, my buddy started it. Yeah. Zach Iskell. Really? Yeah. No way. Yeah. Zach Iskell, he started Task and Purpose and Headstrong. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So, they were having some fundraising problems at the beginning of all this nonsense, but I think they're doing okay now. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I had a great EMDR counselor through them. Mm-hmm. Fucking awesome. But yeah, so I got a little mixer, was a little bedroom DJ, and then I started making my own music. It kind of sucked. I released a couple songs, and my theory is like, a lot of
how do you like release songs? Like when you're making something and you're releasing it, what does that mean? Like, are you just releasing it on social media? How are you? Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So there's a couple ways. So a lot of people just do SoundCloud. A lot of DJs.
Oh yeah. Right.
And they'll make, so there's a difference between your original stuff and remixes and official remixes. So on SoundCloud, you can upload anything and copyright doesn't strike you.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Sometimes it does, but you have to change it enough. And most DJs won't go on there and be like, you can't post this remix of my song. Most DJs are happy that you're doing it, right? Remix is a huge part of our industry.
Right.
And actually, some of that has died and it's really taken down the quality of the music. But I don't really like doing stuff that doesn't have, I don't find that to be super tangible, right? You make a really good remix, it goes viral, still no one knows who you are. They can't find you on any other stuff. So I just said, I'm going to make my own stuff. So I have a distributor called Song Trader. They're really cool to me. I'm actually one of their top artists right now. So they actually...
Really?
Yeah. So they've only got like 170 people that work for the company. They've got like hundreds of thousands of artists. And they actually called me on the phone to talk to me.
That's fucking cool.
Yeah. And, I have like a legitimate account manager. So I just...
So explain to me, I know electronic music. I'm a dumbass when it comes to it.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested because this is something I really don't know a fucking thing about. And it's such a huge industry. It's huge.
Yeah.
And I don't understand it. And when I say, like, how do you explain this to, a 44-year-old,
Yeah.
idiot?
Well, I'm a fellow idiot, so I can talk.
Talk idiot was me,
we
yeah.
talk monkey, right?
Yeah.
We reject modernity, turn to monkey, right? Have you seen that meme?
Yeah.
So at the top, you have what's called dance music.
You could, EDM, right? Or just dance music?
No.
Okay, got it.
So at the top, you have dance music / electronic music, right?
Okay.
And that starts really in the 80s.
Right.
Since then, it's branched off like crazy. So EDM is almost like a pejorative for someone who isn't making EDM, because now I don't actually get insulted. If another DJ says you're making EDM and you're trying to make something else, you'd be like, damn, bro, this is trash.
Fucked up.
Unless you're trying to make EDM. Like some dudes just they like that's like poppy stuff. That's what you hear on the radio. A lot of really actually good EDM came out in like 2010 to 2013.
Right.
And I actually talk about this a lot. A lot of the artists from then, they've continued to push, these big labels are funding them. They continue to push them above everyone else.
Right.
So what's happening is these guys aren't putting out the quality that they used to put out, and it's trash. And people are copying that style because they know it'll get them signed with labels.
Oh, gotcha.
So you're sort of perpetuating like this really shit music right now. So if you actually go and you listen and you look up some of these songs, the only songs that survive, that continue to be played at clubs today, are almost, it's not a competition. Like it's almost all 2010 to 2013. And then the newest song from, 2 months ago.
Right.
So that's EDM. On the other side, you have house music. And the house is like old school, like you got the voice and it's like a beat, and then you hear, some deep voice talking about nonsense.
Yeah.
Well, that branches out into tech house, which is a continuation of that. You have trance, which is kind of where I'm going.
Right.
You have bass house, which is where the bass is the actual melody. Because the bass sounds that you would use for your bass become higher octaves. Do you know octaves?
Oh yeah.
So that you just bump up the octaves of what you would use for bass, and that kind of becomes the melody or the chords.
Okay.
And then those branch out into like 1,000 different things. Like right now, I'm trying to make synthwave. I'll show you after this. It's
you got to tell me what this is.
Synthwave it's like a revival of 80s music.
Right.
Have you heard "Blinding Lights" by The Weeknd?
No.
Okay.
We'll
talk offline.
Yeah, you'll have to talk.
So it's like a revival of like these really synthy, like 80s, like Escape from New York type.
Oh, yeah,
stuff.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's with more modern sounds.
Right.
And I think that's where the industry's going. And because I don't try to follow what like right now everyone's making what's called slap house, which is a variation of bass house.
Okay.
And I don't want to make slap house because one, I like it, but I don't like it as what I want to make. I like synthy stuff, and I like trance. And synthwave is kind of trancey, and it's kind of so. That's what I'm trying to make because I think it's where the industry's going, and I think it sounds cool. So even if it doesn't go there, my goal is really just to make the best music possible. Which I guess you're kind of getting into like how have I been able to scale this?
Yeah. Well, because I'm like fascinated by this because there's millions of people that listen to this. And when they're talking about it, it's almost like they're talking about it in a foreign language, right?
Yeah.
It's like so you and I were talking a couple months ago and I was like, God, this would be really fucking interesting because I've talked to multiple people that are like, oh, I'm really into this. And there's millions of people that are into it. And I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
In the context of, I know it exists. I know that there are millions of people that are into it. And then they come together and it's such a huge industry. Like how big is the industry? Do you even know how big it is like in the US and like internationally as far as like how big this thing is?
Yeah. So it's huge in Europe.
Right.
Like every club is playing dance music. In the US, it's New York, LA, Miami, a little bit of Houston. I think you're seeing it start to pop up in cities, but it's not like, for example, like, I'm based out of Missouri, so I fly to gigs from there.
Right.
And in Missouri, everyone's listening to rap, right?
Right.
So rap as a club music has a big hold across the US. I don't have a problem with rap. I just don't like it. So I don't go to any of those shows. But rap is kind of the dominant thing. So I have to tell clubs, like when they're booking me, I'm like, I'm not going to play any rap, no R&B, like that doesn't fit in with me. So I have that caveat so they know, hey, if my audience isn't going to, respond, if your audience isn't going to respond to this, I'm not a good fit for this.
Right.
So, but across Europe, I mean, it's huge. I don't know if you've heard of Tomorrowland.
No.
It's this massive festival in the Netherlands, I think. And I mean, you're talking like hundreds of thousands of people over 2 weeks. But yeah, it's more like, I feel like it's more like, people are more apt, especially in the US, to go to an EDM festival than they are, and I'm using EDM just as a blanket term. An EDM festival than they are to go to an EDM show. Right. Because they've seen the pageantry. Everyone wears like outfits, and like when I go, like I don't really go anymore. I just perform, and I used to like, I used to roll face on Molly all the time. So what you do is I was wearing masks before it was, I want to say cool, but I think the word I'm looking for is stupid. But you'd put this stuff that you put in your nose. It's like to clear your sinuses, and you'd put it on the mask, and you'd wear it, and like you're just like it makes the role super intense, and you're just like having a good time. But people like that. People like that it's kind of like a really super free area, and you can do whatever you want, and you can be the person that gets way too fucked up, which I think is actually a problem now. Like people go just to get fucked up, and it takes away from the scene, which used to be more like love, and people would go around and like give you light shows with their hands and stuff, and it was really cool. Now it's more like, I'm going to take 20 tabs of acid, and I'm just going to like sit in this corner and just like mush out, and like we call them wooks. But even the non-wook people are like doing that now, and it's just not. It lost kind of like the lovey-dovey like friendliness of it. So
as an origin from the perspective of the origin story of electronic music in the United States and festivals, is Burning Man, is there a crossover between like the Burning Man crowd and this crowd? Like, is there like a lot of synergy or crossover or overlap?
Yeah, I think Burning Man is like a lot of folk.
Okay.
But electronic kind of molds in with that.
Yeah.
So there's sort of a spectrum between electronic and folk, and I think you kind of get these like dubby sounds, which is like so it's like BPM, right? the beats per minute. So you get the faster BPMs, those are house music. The slower, like dubstep. And that music's a little more weird and it doesn't have as many rules and you can kind of do whatever. I think they mold well with folk music, but also like jam. And the middle, I think, is like jam bands.
Yeah.
With like a keyboard.
Right.
And it's sort of a spectrum of that. You've got straight electronic.
Right.
It gets a little like Wookiee here. And then you've got a jam band, and then you've got folk music over here.
Oh, so that's so fucking interesting. Because the way you were describing it reminded me of the Grateful Dead, probably back in the in the 60s, right? So the jam band, where it was peace and love and happiness, and San Francisco, hippie beatniks. And then it turned into, it evolved, and it still maintained, I think, at its core, this piece, but then it turned into, and from your description, there's a lot of wooks.
Yeah.
A lot of people that were just taking a lot of drugs and just like zone the fuck out.
Yeah.
Right. But there's still a lot of people that really appreciate the music and the genre from that era that didn't just go and lobotomize themselves for hours. Right. So,
yeah.
There's like a legitimate following of millions of people in the United States that listen to this, that appreciate it. So when you look at it from the tree of influence, like who are the fathers of this, like in the early 2000s, or the mothers, whomever?
Well,
right?
really, I mean, in my mind, it goes back to Armin van Buuren, who is from the 80s.
Okay.
And Carl Cox.
Okay.
These are two guys. These are two like the old school guys, but they made sounds that if you mixed in, so like mixing is, mixing on your board.
Right.
So if you mix those in with music from right now, no one would, like, you'd be like, oh, this is like a cool track. Is this like new? If you didn't know it, you'd be like, maybe you'd have to change a few things about it. And that's, if people do that, they'll do like a 2020 redux where they add in maybe some newer sounds. But yeah, a lot of the stuff from back then you could put it back in. But yeah, I think you've got Cash, you got Morgan Page, you've got Tiesto, you've got Hardwell, like all these guys, but again, the problem with some of these guys is like they haven't left the scene, and it's like not these ones I named specifically.
Right.
These people, the ones I named, are people that I really admire.
Mm-hmm.
But like you've got a lot of these artists who are headlining the same festivals they were headlining in 2013,
right,
with the same people below them and the same lineup below that, and it's just like, and then you get people like Marshmello. Okay, right. I will talk shit on this person. I went and saw him, and it was like, he had this one good album called Joy Time, and it was really cool and synthy and whatever. And then I went and saw, and he's like, yo, you guys fucking ready? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fucking ready. Cool, yeah. And he's like, yeah, let's go. 30 seconds later, and then every 30 seconds he was talking. I'm like, shut up, dude. I'm like, trying to like, so that's where the hype crowd gets in. And that's what you're seeing right now is like the hype crowd.
Right.
They're like, it's like girls that want to dress up like a fairy. Like,
yeah.
Just so they can go there and people will tell them they look beautiful as a fairy, right? She doesn't care about the music. Like the guy who goes and he's got like his glasses on. He's got like Pit Vipers. I like Pit Vipers, but
solid. He's
got Pit Vipers on and he's took 20 tabs of acid and he's like, he's just in a corner like zombieing out like, oh, bro. And then the next day he's telling everyone, dude, it was sick, bro. It was a fucking movie, bro. It's like, what, do you remember any of it? No. No, apparently like I pissed myself while standing up. It's like, cool. Like,
awesome.
Yeah.
So when people are booking you out, how, like, are you traveling like all around the United States and playing like clubs? Are you playing venues, like combination of everything? Like how does somebody even book you out?
Yeah. So right now I just know a lot of promoters.
Okay.
I am trying to get like a dedicated booker.
Right.
I've been kind of focusing on the sound lately. So I've got a good amount of royalties coming in from streams. So I've really been focusing on producing. Producing is making the music, on your computer. I'm taking like piano lessons so I can make better chords and all this stuff. Because I feel like, because the main reason I started was because I started to notice around 2015, I was like, this music is starting to sound not good. Right? People were copying the people who aren't making good stuff.
Right.
Because they think that'll get them signed with the labels. And it worked. And so I was like, I'm going to come in, maybe I'm not going to do it all myself, right? Because I came in late, but like, I'm going to make some melodies. I'm going to work with some guys who can help me to make really good music. And then eventually it's just going to be so good that it's going to get popular.
Got it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and it started to work. I get about, just through Spotify itself, I get about 200,000 people listening monthly.
Whoa.
Yeah. My first track just hit 1,100,000. My first track to go over 1 million just hit 1,100,000 the other day. It was like a trance piece I did.
Right.
And so, so I'm kind of like, how famous can I get before someone just comes up to me and says, hey, like we need you to start playing festivals. And this is a problem that I think you'll empathize with. Like a lot of these people in the industry, they're just very liberal, and I'm kind of a dick.
Right.
And I just don't really, I'm not a liberal, but I'm not a conservative. I get along with conservatives very well. I'm a libertarian, hardcore libertarian, like radical libertarian. I was actually talking to this person in the industry the other day, and I said, I'm a libertarian. She's like, oh, I'm a libertarian. I'm like, yeah, like we need to legalize fully automatic weapons. And she goes, what? And I was like, and I go, and I literally put my hand in my face and go, oh man, I just fucked up. She thought I was a liberal.
Oh yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, joking. The craziest part was she tried to get me to say that I don't support Donald Trump. And it's like, you mean the guy who hasn't been president for a year and a half?
Right.
Like,
you mean the civilian?
Yeah,
the former president? Yeah.
And it's like, and I actually won't say that because I don't really have a problem with Donald Trump. Like, I love, one of my favorite things was they were like, oh, he's racist. And it was like, well, what was the thing? They used the clip of him saying the thing about people coming over from Mexico when he wasn't even president. No. The fact that you guys couldn't find a better clip than that in 5 years, like, I don't know. I don't really care. But like, I just couldn't believe so if that tells you anything about kind of what I'm up against. So for me, it's just, I fund it myself. I have one outside investor. I consult in my free time.
What kind of consulting?
Strategy for political campaigins.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I actually have a guy you should talk to, Larry Sharp. He's one of the guys I'm consulting for. He's running for governor of New York.
Oh, wow.
He is trying to get, and it's actually kind of working, he's trying to get the Republican nomination as a libertarian. Wow. I think I'll let him elaborate on that. Yeah. But they want him to have it. I think that's what it is. They want him to have the nomination. Like he beat them up so bad because I was his, so I have a background in marketing, which is kind of how I've been able to elevate myself. Right. But that was, in the last campaign, we were able to beat up the Republicans so bad that now they're like, we don't want to face him again. So they're courting him to do that. So, kind of long. I thought I had a point.
No, I think I keep, there's a wide level of interest here because you're a marketing guy. You're doing so many different things. So have you worked for other companies as a marketing guy, or is it just like, yeah you have?
So the job before this, I was in finance as marketing. I was their only marketing guy. Solid. Before that, I was the marketing director for a festival on Randall's Island in New York. Oh, okay. Yeah, they actually launched it that year. I was in charge of the $350,000 marketing budget, I think. I actually did like an influencer strategy for that. Right. Worked out really well. Before that, I worked for Larry's original campaign. What's that? Running for governor. Oh, sorry, yeah. Larry. But,
original campaign. Got it.
Yeah. So the guy before us had raised $10,000 running for governor as a libertarian. Right. We raised $500,000. Wow. And I was able to do that through social media. Right. I make really good video content. I'm also a cinematographer and producer.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah. You're gonna laugh, but actually, I started my political career working with the Bernie Sanders team.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I needed some clout.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I knew I wasn't going to get hired by Trump. I knew I wasn't going to get hired by Hillary. And I kind of weaseled my way in.
Right.
I didn't care about politics at the time. I just got out of the military. I didn't understand. But that was kind of how I started my career in that. And yeah, they screwed me over. They made us reshoot. So we did a Veterans for Bernie Sanders thing.
Yeah.
We shot it. I shot a $100,000 production on a $10,000 budget. They made me do a reshoot because we didn't have enough diversity in the veteran cast. Because we had men and women, but they were all white. And all I did was put out a notice over Craigslist.
Right.
And I talked to people on the phone. I didn't ask them what race they were because I'm not a racist.
Right. Imagine that.
and it's just so happened that I guess the people that responded on Craigslist were all white. So they made us reshoot it, which cost me another $10,000. They weren't going to release it, which was going to screw me over with all the people I called in favors from. So I leaked it. So also fuck them. Fuck officers and fuck the people on that campaign. I am telling you to your face, I leaked it.
Wait, so where did it go? Did it go up on YouTube? Or? Yeah. Okay.
It got like 500,000 views.
Did it really?
They were trying to kowtow to the Hillary campaign at the time. Right. They were trying to surrender and see if they could get like a cabinet spot or something. Right. Because that's half the time that's what you're doing in these.
You're just.
I can talk politics. I can talk music. Like I'm so involved in all these fucking things. But yeah, speaking of marketing and music, and I know you guys do a bunch of funny videos. We try. Yep. So I have 2 funny music video ideas.
Okay.
That I don't have the budget for, and totally think on these.
Okay.
You don't have to give me an answer, but so I have 2 music video ideas. One is a parody of Scooby-Doo. It's called Howl. The video itself is called Howl.
Okay.
Right? So it's a parody of Scooby-Doo. So the gang comes up, shot of the front of the van. Van comes up. It's a Scooby-Doo van parody.
Got it.
The gang gets out. They're all in rave gear, right? This could all be dudes or it could all be extremely hot women posing, dressing up like the Scooby-Doo gang.
Right.
Which means someone's going to have to dress up like a dog, which is going to be hilarious. So they get to a farm. The farmer is talking to them. There's a monster. All of a sudden, in the back of the gang, like wide shot of the gang, in the back, you see a furry's head pop up. And they all turn around and they run away, right? And so this entire video is a Scooby-Doo parody where there's a furry chasing the gang. And, they're running around the doors and they go in one door, but they come out of another door. So you need a hallway like that.
Right, yeah.
And then, at one point, like the furry is wearing Shaggy's underclothes, but the furry hat, and, Shaggy's wearing the furry suit and, his face. And then the end, 2 endings. One ending would be, we unmask the furry and it's like you.
Right.
Or anyone that you would want it to be.
Yeah.
Or the second ending, since it's Howl and it's about it's kind of like a werewolf thing, the song itself, is we lift off the mask and it's a Subway sandwich. And then the gang just goes into a feeding frenzy and fucking eats the sandwich.
I like that one.
So that's the first one.
Yeah.
Now the second one, there's 2 names that this could be. One would be The Hunt for WAP, right? WAP, wet ass pussy.
Yep.
Or The Hunt for Red Cocktober.
Red Cocktober.
Yeah. There's like a bass house piece. It's like really energetic. And there are 2 different budget sizes for this. I'm going to give you the big budget, but then how we could downsize this thing. So it's a shot-for-shot remake of obviously not the whole movie, but the best scenes in The Hunt for Red October. But it starts out close up, your face. You got aviators on. You have not a corncob pipe, but like the old Admiral's pipe.
Yeah.
Right? Boom. You take off the glasses and then the pipe just drops out of your mouth and you're like, Mother of God. And then it turns and it's a group full of women in bikinis with super soakers. Right. In front of like some big ass house, almost like a sorority house or something.
Right.
And then all of a sudden we cut to, you're on like a cruiser or something, right? On the bridge. And you've got a bunch of, men around you. This could be the core 4, right?
Could, yeah.
And they're all wearing like skivvies with the Dixie cup.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, the dog bowls. Yeah.
Yep. And then and then it would change based on whether it's the Hunt for Red Cocktober or if it's the Hunt for WAP of who's in the sub, right? Whether it's men or women. So we go to the sub and it's women in bikinis, but it's like that Russian style. Right. And then, you know, you have the captain. And then basically we're hunting them the whole time with famous shots from that. And then obviously a lot of like, you know, and obviously, you know, this is very sexist, right? So I'm not sure that you guys would ever be down for something like this. And definitely no one in the music industry would be down for this kind of thing anymore.
I'm pretty sure Matt would be good with this. Yeah, he likes to push the line, you know, or he likes to line step, if not step over it. I'm not sure if you've seen some of his videos.
I've maybe seen one or two or 72 or
yeah, and this is like right up his alley. So we're doing this. We're doing one that we're releasing in April, which will be a big surprise for people. Well, I'll tell you offline what that's going to look like, and
okay.
it's a pretty interesting concept, which is going to like, it might make a few jaws drop. It's going to be a little bit insane, but like for us, when we like do these videos, it's funny because we just come up with them. So we're just like, whatever. So we do these verses now. So I don't know if you've seen any of those where we bring in guys and we're like, hey, you direct it. And we're just like, whatever. But we have 48 hours to direct and release the entire fucking video. And it turns into just the most ridiculous shit. Like the last one we did was the human, which was like the ultimate man hunting ranch or whatever, but it was fucking stupid. But we're always game for good ideas.
There was like a
good,
zombie,
stupid ideas.
There was like a zombie one the other day.
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to watch that one, but I think I should, right? I went to the YouTube channel. I didn't see it on there. I was I should watch that this morning, and I didn't see it. So
it's on Matt's. I think we were driving traffic over there.
And that's the thing. I always get confused because so when I first started researching you guys, I'm like, because I knew Article 15.
Yeah, for sure.
And I knew Black Rifle.
Right.
But I'm like, wait, these guys are, and I'm like, oh, and then listen to podcasts, and I'm starting to put two and two together.
Right.
You know, because I listened to most of your guys' interview podcasts.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, you guys did McCullough.
Yeah.
And then you did, who was that author? That was a good one. You did, if you're listening,
Malcolm Gladwell.
You should listen to the Malcolm Glad.
Yeah.
The people listening, you should listen to the Malcolm Gladwell one.
Yeah, Malcolm Gladwell's an awesome guy.
That was tough. Like you were talking about like not being able to tell your kids, like, you know, and like some of the stuff. And that, you know, that's like the way you said it, it was really, I connected with, you know, I can tell this to veterans, but I can't tell this to other people because they're just not going to get it.
Yeah. And there are things that we can talk about as veterans, like we have these shared experiences. And that's one of the things with even the company, we have 50% vets here. So it's like, you can't walk down the hall without high-fiving some asshole that was in the military, you know, and that's a good thing because we can have a lot of cool, interesting, you know, conversations about, you know, service or whatever it might be. But we also have really, we have a typically a dark sense of humor as well. So you're not really worried about offending people or whatever it might be. I think it's like one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about was like, and I think it was really fucking really cool because you chose such a different way to, you know, you went from the Navy, you made your transition, and now you're doing something like so different, right? You've made this unorthodox professional life decision where you're like, I'm running into some politics. I'm do you classify it as EM then, electronic music? So can you say EM?
You say dance music or
dance
electronic music.
Yeah, okay. So electronic music. I think it's fucking awesome. Like I love seeing like vets specifically go out and carve their own way and do something completely different and be like, this is exactly what the fuck I'm doing and who cares? Like this is what I do. Because it's awesome. Like, and it's different than a lot of the guys that we have on the show. It's you know, and I love them. They're like my bros, obviously, like, you know, because evidently people call me a bro vet. But you know, if guys go from like SF to the CIA or wherever they go, like I don't get to talk to a lot of guys who are like, oh, this is what I'm doing, and it's awesome. And this is like a totally different culture of people that are way into this that honestly I have like zero exposure to. Like, when I go home and I'm hanging out with my kids and I've been watching this stupid show on Amazon. It's like, did you ever watch Top Gear?
Yeah.
You ever get into that?
Gear.
Yeah.
I've seen an episode, but I didn't get super into it.
I got into it. And I'm not even a big car guy. I actually have like almost zero interest in cars typically, like almost like none. But Jeremy Clarkson is one of the main characters, and he's got this farm now in the UK, and I've been watching this stupid show on him like becoming a farmer, which is like this urbanite now becoming a farmer. And I'm like hyper interested in this. I know nothing, I know fuck all about farming. And that's like why, one of the reasons why I'm like, I know nothing about, electronic music. I got to have you on the show to tell your story so I can try to figure this out in a way that's like very interesting to me. So when you think about over the next like couple years, and when you think about what music just in general, and I've heard this from a lot of people, do you think that like lyrical music in general, do you think it'll start to downsize its general influence in like American society, or do you think that it'll roughly stay the same?
When you say lyrical music,
like rock, like typical rock, typical country, like pop music that's like takes, a singer, like a main focus. And do you think that they'll de-emphasize that? And do you think there'll be more of an emphasis on electronic music? Do you think it's growing and it's going to continue to grow and more like eclipse general pop music?
Yeah. Well, so I wanted to touch on one thing you said, because you real quick before I get to that, please. You're talking about veterans. Like the thing is, you just have to expect zero institutional support if you're a veteran and you're like just trying to start something creative. Because as soon as people hear that, like I put Navy vet on my Instagram,
right?
That's it. Because and I'm not against it. The first thing I say is, people say you're Guantanamo. Yeah, I went to Guantanamo Bay. Like, or I say I used to work there, as if it's like I used to work at Arby's. Like, I used to work at Arby's. Yeah, I say it exactly like that, and people are like, oh. Yeah. Like every security guard's, this badass name. I'm like, yeah, I used to work there.
Right.
But don't expect any institutional support, because when people hear that you were in the military, they immediately look at you like a certain way. Yeah. And so that's why I still to this day, do contract work, because that money is what funds, like, because I know how to run ads. Right. And that's what I do. I run ads to make sure people hear my music, but the music also has to be good enough. Right. So if you're trying to do it, like, just keep in mind that, just because the institution isn't supporting you, like, it's up to you to figure out how to do that. If that means you have to work full-time while DJing full-time while producing full-time, like, so fucking what? Right. You just won't have any free time. So you'd want to have a girlfriend. Yeah. This is a really good point though. Like, and I'll tackle on that, which is creativity, especially coming out of, the military specifically. Like I've always been very creative compared to my peer group. Like you were talking about it in the mind of the philosopher, right? Where you talk about it. And I would actually talk about it more in the context of comedian, in that I had a mind of very similar, but it's mainly built around comedy. I'd always look for these points and reference when whatever we are doing to emphasize what I thought was funny. That was like how my mind worked all the time. And sometimes you have to diagnose what's happening from like a subculture perspective, and then look at it objectively, poke holes in it in order to find where the humor in such event is, right? So I can emphasize, or I can be very, I can think about this and understand like 12-hour shifts around detainees, and then shift work one alone. Shift work is really difficult, and I would have a really hard time doing it because it almost feel like you were in prison as well. I did. And so I can't even imagine what the mental toll for somebody that's like actively thinking all the time. And two, when I got out, it was almost like I got let out. It's like I was free. I could go and do what I wanted to do without judgment from my peers
and I could be as creative as I want. If I want to sit down and draw something, and not as if like people were preventing me from doing it before. It's just, there's not this hyper creative culture that's built around the military. There just isn't. I wish there was.
Yeah.
I really, because there's some incredibly intelligent and creative people in the military where I think if we did encourage that, I think they would actually be much happier ultimately. But
I think it's ironic because, right, you look at like the backbone of the creative industries were all built on veterans, right? And even literary, right?
Right.
Socrates, right? Philosopher he was a soldier before he was a philosopher.
Right.
Right. Jump ahead to J.R.R. Tolkien.
Yeah.
Right. The horrors he saw.
Yeah.
I saw the movie. The horrors he saw in that war. Just thinking about it gives me like goosebumps.
Yeah.
Like, the horrors he saw in that war were what inspired him to write what he wrote. Like I forget the name of it. One of the guys that was in my fraternity went to a different school, and he went to our fraternity because he didn't have one at his school. And it was like the Design Institute. I forget the name of it. It's in New York City, but it was started by a veteran for veterans after World War II to use their GI Bill to get into the creative fields.
Right.
And tons of people went into the film industry from there.
Mm-hmm.
So you have all these things, and it's like, well, I think veterans are creative. I think we're just not, again, people, when I got out, oh, you're going to be a cop. Like, there's nothing wrong with being a cop. Like, a lot of my best friends are cops.
Yeah.
And it's like, I didn't want that.
Right.
But everyone, even the institutions right now, and I will say, I actually have to give a shout out to the Herd label. They're my first institutional investor. But besides them, no one else has come to me and been like, yo, we're going to, like people, they call it developing artists.
Right.
So if you look at, Lil Nas X.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, his Old Town Road came out. Mm-hmm. It went viral. And then, people put millions of dollars into him because they knew, they were like, okay, we can develop this guy into like this really famous artist, and, we'll get our returns from it.
Right.
People don't really see that with veterans. They'll do it with, I don't want to say not at all, but it's people, as soon as they hear veteran, they just think like, one person, like when I met people in college, they'd be like, you're a veteran? Like, oh, when I think of a veteran, I think of like my grandpa, like walking around with a cane and telling like stories about being in a flying fortress.
Right.
She wasn't that specific. She doesn't know what a flying fortress is. But but yeah. So and then you asked the second question. I kind of trailed off on.
Sure.
You ask what was the second part of that? Well, actually, I added the first part. What was the question?
Well, it was, I think what I was getting to was the growth of like the music itself. And then how do you look at music in the future? And do you think that electronic music will ultimately eclipse what mainly like vocals? Because I see this trend, I see this rapid growth. And then do you guys talk about it as like, this is going to be the music that ultimately is defining like humanity of the future, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely are not returning to monkey, right?
Correct.
Like people are talking about the metaverse and all this stuff. And which I do think it's inevitable, right? And people do like electronic music way more than they used to. Mm-hmm. And it is wildly more popular. And so what I can do, which is great, with like Spotify and some of the other ones that provide statistics. I'm not talking up Spotify. I don't love the payouts I get from them, but I'll take it. Sure. It is what it is. But I can look at the cities where I'm getting traction, right?
Right.
And of course, New York, LA, Miami. But like I said, Houston's starting to pop up.
Right.
I see DC starting to pop up. I see Charleston, South Carolina.
Wow.
So it's definitely spreading. Like
right.
It looks like herpes. Like it's like
it's like just flaring up in little spots.
Yeah.
You could say flaring up.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of flare-ups. I've seen a lot of more commercials for that kind of stuff on TV, and I think that's why.
Do you think it's trending younger too? Do you think it's like with a specific, I would say from, and I don't even know what generation we're on, to be honest with you, but like from the perspective of social media, do you think most of your listeners would be more into like Twitch or IG, or what are they into?
Yeah. So, like millennials, I think you were either a millennial who was into electronic music, or you think it's like silly robot music.
Right.
I think Zoomers, that's the new generation. I think the Zoomer, it's Gen Z, but I call them Zoomers.
Right.
Because it's like boomers, Zoomers.
Boomers, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I trademarked that. So if you
Zoomer,
use it,
I'm going to use it. Yeah,
pay me royalties.
I just use it twice.
Great. All right, I'll send you the bill. But yeah, so the Zoomers, they're open to it. I've played a couple college parties and like I said, I don't play any rap, and especially if you're in, again, Missouri, or you're in some of the southern states, like they are more used to hearing rap.
Right.
So I noticed they're into it. But like if you play for like a millennial crowd and they're into rap and you play electronic music, it's not great. So there's definitely the growth potential right now is massive. And we're going to start seeing what Europe sees, which is like a lot more people listening to it. People are actually into tech house right now, which is, tech house is like really repetitive, and it's like an overarching voice of like, it almost sounds like angelic or godly coming on in the middle of this thing. Yeah. People are actually really into that right now. So, which really surprised me, because EDM is like a million miles away from that.
Right.
So I really do think Gen Z is gonna make it big.
So what's next? Is this your, like, what you're doing right now? Just grow your audience, grow what you do, and have more influence? Or are you thinking more in like professional marketing track? Like, what's next for you?
Yeah. It's funny, like a lot of people are focused on getting the gigs.
Yeah.
But it's like, if you can't bring the audience, if people aren't excited that you're going to be there, or they're not just looking to see how much clout you have. Like a lot of the time, if you have 1 million followers or monthly listeners worldwide, how many of those people live in one city? Probably not a lot, because it's very spread out. But they'll look at your profile, they'll go to your Instagram, or they'll look at you on Spotify to see how many followers you have, to see if it's worth going to. Because again, people just go for, like hype. Right. Which I don't have a problem with.
Yeah.
So I'm at 200,000 right now. So my first year of really being serious, I had 1 million streams that year. Last year I had 2.1. This year, just with my own investments and the investment I got from Herd Label, I'm looking at probably hitting 7 or 8 million.
Whoa. Holy shit.
So the question to me is, do I go and try to get the gigs, or do I just keep really improving on the music and really bumping up the number of people that are listening to it? And I think focusing on bumping up the number of people who are listening to it, because no one else is doing that. They're just trying to get signed with a big label with crap music. And the problem with making the crap music is people are going to forget about it in a year.
Right.
And then Tiesto doesn't make crap music. I like Tiesto, but Tiesto's got a huge following. He's going to have a huge following for the rest of his life. He's a superstar.
Right.
So no one's going to stop listening to Tiesto. But you, who made this slap house track that you don't even like, that maybe a ghost producer made the whole thing, which I don't even have a problem with if a ghost producer made it. A ghost producer is where you don't have anything to do with it and someone else makes it. I don't have a problem with that. But you don't even like it and you're just releasing it. Like, if you don't even like it, no, people might like it for a year because they're sort of in I'll use a term I may have heard this year that isn't true, mass psychosis.
Yeah.
That isn't a real, it's not a real thing, apparently. I watched CNN TV, it's not a real thing. But yeah, a year later, they're going to be like, nah, that track was, they'll hear it and, they'll be like, oh yeah, this is a pretty good song. And it'll go to the next one. They won't look at what your name is. They won't try to follow you, And the second thing, so I'm going to focus on making the music. The second thing is, and this one's a little harder because I just don't have the funds for it, but like, I really need to focus on making a personality for myself. Like, what makes me different from all the other people? Like, I got to start making like some funny videos and stuff and all that kind of stuff. But, that's hard with the amount of time I have.
Right.
But I don't know. You got to do what you got to do,
Mm-hmm.
So.
It was awesome, man. Like, Zach, this has been great. Thanks, dude.
Thanks,
Appreciate it a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're welcome back anytime, buddy.
And
have fun in Salt Lake.
If you want to listen to my music, it's on not figuratively, but literally every streaming platform that is available. So just if you're on Spotify right now, just go straight to it. Guantanamo Bae. That's BAE.
BAE, Guantanamo Bay. And we'll put links to it in the YouTube video. But definitely check him out. He's on Instagram, obviously on everything, but go and check it out.
Just music and then Instagram. I can't do TikTok,
I can't either, man.
Yeah.
It's too many weird middle-aged women lip singing. It fucks my head. I'm this is weird.
Did you see the army officer who does dances?
Yes. Actually, there's a couple TikTok pages we won't cut out just right now because there's a couple TikTok pages where it's just Boots being as fucking God. As miserable. It is it's so cringeworthy for me to watch these because they're trying to gather sympathy or whatever. And I get it, right? It's Boots being Boots because they want to get laid and they're I don't know how I'm going to get through this or whatever. And you're oh, dude. Thank God we didn't have things like this. When I was a fucking boot because I probably would have made some dumbass shit too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, thank God.
Cool. See you, man.
That concludes today's training. Any questions?